All right, let's get ready for the weekend. Huge game tonight in South Philly. Keith Pompey, let's bring him on. Do you think I'd be saying that about a month ago that there'd be a huge game in South Philly?
Maybe it was the Flyers, or if it was like maybe a high school team playing in South Philly. You know what I mean? But no. I mean, right now, if you looked at it about a month ago, Joel Embiid wasn't playing. The Sixers looked like they were the second coming of the process. I mean, if you're going to be real, they were struggling. They looked like a lottery team. And then all of a sudden, Joel comes back and then there's like new life in the team. So no, you wouldn't have said that a month ago, but this is a huge game against the Orlando Magic, led by Michigan's Franz Wagner.
Franz Wagner, Mo Wagner, Caleb Houston, Jet Howard. Half the team went to Michigan.
For our listeners, Keith put Jeff on the defensive, calling out Michigan before we started
Yeah,
the.
we can't say those words on the
So
air.
Jeff is in defensive mode rather than let's talk about the Sixers mode. Go ahead, Jeff.
No, I just think this is my own commentary before I ask a question. I think it's sad that we've gotten to this point in the city that the huge game is whether or not we can make it out of the the knockout round of the playoffs. Not huge game because we might win the division, huge game because we might lock up a top seed. This is this is whether we don't have to play in the play-in. The question is, okay, let's assume the Sixers get into the play-in. I would say they're going to make it out of that. And then they're stuck playing either the Celtics or the Bucks. Is this going to be a first? Let's assume that it's the Bucks. Do they have a puncher's chance against the Bucks?
You know what? I think they do just because of here's the problem with the Bucks. The
Doc
Bucks
Rivers?
defensive. Well, I mean, some people some people may say that, but I also think that Dame Lillard has been getting attacked a lot on the defensive end, right? You have the Greek freak Giannis Antetokounmpo, who's been playing extremely well just to try to keep this team afloat. The problem is he has a messed up ankle right about now. So if whoever gets them early may have a puncher's chance, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think that, to be honest with you, I think the New York Knicks at this particular time of the season are better than the Bucks. I do. I think the Knicks are, but I think there are several teams in the league, like the Bucks, for instance, that's a little suspect. I mean, since Doc Rivers been the coach, they've been 17 and 17. I think the Cleveland Cavaliers are suspect. I think that Cleveland has shown us the previous two seasons that they're a way better regular season team than they are a playoffs. They don't take that next level up. And I think that's the reason why there's some optimism with the 76ers, just because like it's kind of like the teams ahead of them are kind of sort of like on a downward spiral, besides the Knicks and the Boston Celtics, who have been taking a week off, right? But that's why the optimism is, and the Bucks. I'm not a big believer in them. Maybe they can turn it on, but I'm just not a big believer in the Milwaukee Bucks at this particular time.
Well, and they would have.
I got a Bucks follow up.
Okay.
Okay, so before the season started, and Drew Holiday went to the Celtics, and Dame Lillard came to the Bucks, we sat here on the air and said, I don't get it. Drew Holiday is one of the best players in the NBA on both sides of the ball. He's a complete player, and he adds a tenacity. Are the Bucks better now than they were last season?
They're worse, man. They're worse. And see what happens is you get in the panic mode a little bit, like, and I get it. They choked in the first round of playoffs. I get that. But then all of a sudden you decide that you got to go star hunting. And that's where, and I love Dame Lillard, I really do. But that's where star hunting goes wrong, because you got rid of a guy who not only is a solid offensive player, a guy who can play both guard positions, but he's one of the league's top defenders in the Eastern Conference when you need a guy who can guard opposing guards. And that's where they messed up at. Like, so it's like, yes, you got Dame Lillard, who is a scorer, but now you're asking him to be a secondary scorer, which isn't a role that he's used to. right? So he has to play off of Giannis. But you gave up a guy who was a, a great distributor, a guy who was a great defender, and a guy who fit in well as a third or fourth scoring option. So yeah, you got the superstar, but you lost team depth. You lost a lot of different things. So no, they're not a better team, and they're not a better team after they made the trade and after they fired the coach either.
You talk about team depth. I don't know that this is the best starting five the Sixers have had in the era since this process, but I think this is the deepest team that they've had in terms of options. You got thoughts on that? And what is the rotation for this team now going into the playoffs?
Yeah, it's weird because I'm not 100% sure if this is the deepest team that they had like right now. I honestly feel like before the trade deadline that this team was a little bit deeper. I do. I do. And on paper it sounds good, but we got to realize a guy like KJ Martin, who's been getting a lot of minutes, fourth quarter minutes as of late, was getting a lot of DMPs before the trade deadline. We look at Buddy Hield. You know, Buddy Hield had probably three, maybe five quality games. Four of those quality games came in the beginning of after he was traded, right? So then the last one was against the Detroit Pistons. So I think there's some holes there. Now, you talk about a starting lineup, right? Is that what you asked?
Yeah.
Right now, I know there's a lot of people saying we got to get Nico Batum in the starting lineup. There's some people saying we got to go with DeAnthony Melton over Kyle Lowry. But right now, if the playoff starts next week, I mean the starting lineup that I'm gonna have, and Jeff is looking at me like I'm crazy, but the starting lineup that I'm gonna have is Kyle Lowry, is um uh what's his name? Joel
Joel
Embiid.
Embiid.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
guy.
Joel Embiid, um Tyrese Maxey, Kelly Oubre, and Tobias Harris. And the reason why I'm saying that is because DeAnthony Melton is only a couple games back. I don't know how many minutes he can give you, right? And then also if he's healthy, he could play more minutes than Kyle, right? If he's healthy.
Mhm.
Secondly, but you also need leadership. Secondly, I think that Tobias, a lot of people are saying you got to get rid of him, get him out of the starting lineup. I don't think that's wise at this stage. I feel like you can lose that player if he struggles in the game. Yeah, Nico, you're going to get the bulk of the minutes, but I feel like you got to go with Tobias. You have to. I honestly do.
All right. I asked the question about the Bucks. I'll ask questions about the Sixers. Are the Sixers better this year than they were last year with Harden?
Ooh, um, See, I'm trying to think back to everybody they had. You know, I think is it now that's is a loaded question because I feel like
Jeff does to you. Welcome to the
I
show.
mean I feel like to be honest, I feel like when Embiid is playing, with Embiid's playing, I feel like Kelly Oubre is kind of like a better fit for them because you have someone as long as you got Kyle Lowry and Kelly Oubre, I feel like they're better fits to play with Embiid because you have Kyle who can orchestrate where people are going, and then you have Kelly who can move without the ball and be aggressive. Now, if Embiid is hurt and Embiid's not playing to the level that we think he should play to, then you got to give me James Harden because James Harden is able to get himself buckets and get others buckets. But the problem with the James and I feel like the James and Joel Embiid pairing is that it becomes too much of a two-man game, right? And other people are just standing around, if that makes sense to you.
Hmm.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't like. I mean, it gets to a point where guys they don't get the ball, they don't get the rock. Remember what Doc Rivers said? This is not a democracy. So then what happens is when those two guys start struggling, then they start looking around at the other people and saying, y'all didn't help. Well, they're like, we didn't get any plays ran for us. It's like, it's like 3 seconds left in the shot clock, and you're throwing the ball to me. You expect me to do a catch and shoot. So, it's kind of like a loaded question. And if I didn't answer your question, I'm sorry, but I feel like they're better if Joel's healthy. If Joel isn't, then you got to ride with James.
All right, I'll ask you another loaded question then. Are they better off with Nick Nurse than they were with Doc Rivers now?
Oh, come on. That's not even loaded.
Okay. To you, asking you that question is a waste of time. Asking him that question may not be a waste of time.
Here's the bad part. Here's the thing I will say this about. I think that Nick Nurse is a better in-game coach. I think that Doc Rivers is more of a CEO, so to speak, right? But I think Nick Nurse makes some adjustments. I think Nick Nurse could do less, do more with less. Now, with that being said, I also feel like if Joel Embiid and James Harden would have played better, then Doc Rivers would have probably everybody would have been raving over him for getting the Sixers out of the second round. But they didn't play. But I do think that Nick Nurse is a better coach than Doc Rivers. Yes, I do. I do.
You mentioned somebody a little bit back, Kelly Oubre, came here on a minimum deal. It seems like he's making an impact on each game now, even the minutes that he gets. The thing that I like is he's not afraid of the shot. Like he doesn't pass it up. He'll go aggressive. He doesn't mind the contact. What role is he going to play here in the playoffs? Where is he coming off the bench?
I think he's starting.
You
I
think he's
think Kelly Oubre is going to start. Like, I mean, right now you look at Tobias Harris, and Tobias Harris is listed as the third best player on the team, and he is. But I think that as of late, Kelly Oubre may have been the third most consistent player on the team, behind Joel Embiid, behind Maxey, and this and that. So I feel like Kelly is going to play a vital role. Now, here's the thing about Kelly, like you said, the thing that I like about him is, yes, his defense is better, but Kelly is a guy who's mastered how to stay involved in the game without any plays being called for him. He's always active. He's crashing the boards. He's doing a lot of things. And the one thing that some people may say about Kelly is like, man, he's always shooting the ball. Well, that aggressive nature that he has enabled him to be able to fit in so well and take up the slack when the other two guys are having off games, and especially while Tobias Harris has been struggling. So, right now you look at Kelly. Kelly has been the third most consistent scorer for the Sixers as of late, surpassing Tobias. So to me, you need to keep him in the starting lineup.
I wanted to ask real fast about health. Covington, not sure about him. Melton's obviously back. Let's see if he holds up. And Maxey's missed games here and there with different sorenesses. How's everybody feeling going into the playoffs? It's the healthiest I've seen Joel Embiid on a court in a long time. What's his team's health going in?
It's pretty good. I mean, the thing about Cove, like Cove, the question you have about Cove is like, hey, what's up with this knee? Because he has a bone bruise. Tobias Harris had a bone bruise. Tobias missed 3 games. You know what I mean? Cove's been out since December the 30th. So is it worse than what you're saying it was?
Yes.
Because it's bad. And so the deal is I don't see Cove like, you asked if he practiced. I asked Nick if he practiced yesterday. Did he do anything? Like, nope, nope. Right. But the health, this might I'm not gonna say it's the healthiest the team has been in a while, because typically you still have uh Tyrese Maxey playing like with a hip impingement, so to speak. Tobias Harris has a banged up knee. Kyle Lowry has a banged up knee. But this is the NBA, where a lot of guys, they go through things and they play through the pain. So it's good to say that they had stuff, but the thing is, I think in the past it's always been Joel. Other guys have been healthy. You know what I mean? At least they weren't listed on the depth chart. I mean, excuse me, on the injury list. So we'll see, man. We'll see. It all sounds good, but then whenever something happens, then we always get that excuse. Well, the guy was playing with a banged up knee.
Well, does it really matter? I mean, I hate to be Debbie
God,
Downer
you are
here.
so
No, I'm
downer.
asking the question. Okay, the Celtics were really good last year, and they added Drew Holiday. Can anybody in the East really keep up with them in a 7-game playoff?
I mean, if they come to play, no. If they come to play. Now, what I saw last night
They got
of
boat
them
race
playing,
last night.
yeah, they got both.
I still don't understand that term, but sometimes somebody's going to have to explain it to me.
Well, it's like,
Keith,
well,
send him the video you posted last night of the two boats.
and you got to see how they were.
Yeah, Jeff doesn't understand that saying.
Yeah,
Basically,
yeah. I mean, I
Celtics
thought it was
Celtics had a different
yeah,
start time for the game last night than the Knicks did. It appeared.
yeah. It's like it was ugly. I mean, dude, it was ugly. Now, the only thing worse than the Celtics starters' performance was the Knicks bench because they almost blew a 30-point lead. It was horrible, man. It was like, whoa, if they'd have played 3 more minutes, it would have been like, they lost by 5. That's how bad the bench was, right? Am I lying? Am I lying?
But I mean, look, at this point, if you can get rest, you get rest. I
Man,
don't.
they were playing though. That's
I
the
know,
problem.
but
Care
they're
about their
playing.
play.
They're keeping loose. But I don't think anybody. They don't. At this point, they just need to get to the playoffs. For them, that's what this is all about. The
Yeah,
next
but they
the
also
next
see.
couple games. So what?
Yeah, but the thing is, we got to
See,
see what the coaching is like too. I mean, I do agree with you. They look great. They're the
Mhm.
team to beat. Um, if they stay healthy in the playoffs, I do expect them to go to the finals. But at the same time, I think that there's going to be a lot of different schemes thrown at them and things like that. And other guys are going to, less heralded guys are going to have to step up. But my main concern with the Celtics is the coaching. Last year in the playoffs, I mean, you've seen it, like, you know, when they finally made an adjustment is when they won the game. But
Mhm.
before won the series, but before that, it was no adjustments being made. There were no adjustments being made in the Eastern Conference Finals, which led to them losing. So to me, now he does have Sam Cassell and other people on his bench. So we got to see what they do, but they are the team to beat. But at the same time, we remember a couple of years ago, the Golden State Warriors won what 70 plus games and didn't win the championship. So anything can happen. I mean, I think coaching is going to be key in the postseason.
well, you mentioned it there. It's the first time in I was never a Doc fan, so we'll just get that out there again. It's the first time in years I feel like the Sixers actually have a coaching advantage in game, in terms of somebody who will make adjustments, who can draw up end of game plays. You saw that a few nights ago where Nico Batum had the inbound pass to Tyrese Maxey to force the overtime. Doc Rivers doesn't draw up that play. I'm sorry, it just doesn't happen in game there like that from what we saw during his time as a Sixers. So talk about the coaching matchups in the East, not the players on the court, the coaches that are there in some of these matchups. Am I wrong to feel more comfortable that I finally have a coach that will make adjustments in game based on what's going on the court?
Yeah, I mean, no, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But at the same time, I do think that there are some pretty good coaches. Like I think the Orlando Magic's coach is probably a guy who doesn't get the just due respect that he deserves. Um,
That's because nobody
you know,
even knows who he is.
well, I mean, yeah, no one knows who he is, but like, let me tell you this: you look at this team, and you see how the problem is they got such a young team and they play hard in the regular season and they did everything that now it's kind of like, okay, the bullets are getting real. So let's see if you guys can elevate. But 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 yes, he's a great coach. Nick Nurse does make some great adjustments. Um, but the thing is, I also think that it's also a players' league too. I mean, think about this. If as much as like Pat Riley was a great coach, as much as Greg Popovich is a great coach, I mean, all these guys had Hall of Famers with him. Like, it's Red R back. You know what I mean, dude? He come on, man. Like, so I think that even with Nick Nurse, when he won the championship, he had Kawhi, right?
Right.
He had Marc Gasol. He had all these other guys, which he is a great coach, and I'm not knocking him. But I also think that, if he was doing this with a G League roster, it wouldn't matter. You know what I mean? Like Tyrese Maxey still had to make that shot. What you call it? Nico Batum is a reason why even when he's slated to be off, they dress him just so he can do an inbound, like because it's like they don't have anyone else to do it. But yeah, he's a better coach than Doc. I'll give you that. I give you that. Um, he makes great plays. But see, the only thing, and I'm drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit, but the only thing that concerns me about my drinking the Kool-Aid is that the teams that they defeated recently weren't that good. Like they defeated the Detroit Pistons, and they were on cruise control, and they needed double overtime to beat the Spurs. So to me, there's two ways you can look at it. You look at it and you say to yourself, a heck of a win. Tyrese Maxey dropped 52 to beat the Spurs. Or you can look at it and say, man, without Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey needed 52 to take this to beat the Spurs in double overtime. So it all sounds good and we're all excited, but and then one thing I will say, they did beat Miami on the road. They did beat Oklahoma City. But these last two games, that's why this game tonight is so important against Oklahoma against Orlando, because it's a quality opponent and the game means something. But to me, that's that's the only thing that makes me a little nervous is that some of these teams, because let's face it, the Sixers got the easiest schedule. Like the last 7 games is the easiest schedule in the NBA.
From what you said, you just mentioned the Spurs. From your observations of Victor Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren, who gets Rookie of the Year?
Victor,
He's insane. That
yeah.
he some of the things he does on the court just shouldn't be humanly possible. It's amazing.
I mean, the thing about Chet is good, but Chet also has Shea Gilgeous Alexander on his team, who, in my opinion, needs to get more credit for the MVP race, right? Because like if you take him off that team, and I know Chet was a number 2 pick, but it's Shea and a bunch of dudes, right? I mean, like who are they? You know what I mean? Like who are they? So you look at Victor, and I get it. Like Wembanyama, his team is struggling, but there's a lot of G League guys on that team. A lot. Like they have Caden Johnson, who's been injured for most of the year. He came back and he played. Charles Bassey was the backup center, getting a lot of minutes, and then he got injured. So it was weird. Like they had to literally sign people, and just for like to fill out the roster. Like they brought up a lot of guys in the G League. So I don't know. It's Victor to me.
And you think Shea should be the MVP, or just to get more credit for it? I mean, if you
It's
take
weird.
him
I'm
off
going
that
back and
team
forth.
versus taking Jokic off of Nuggets.
I'm going back and forth. I'm going back and forth. Like, Jokic is I think Jokic is kind of like LeBron, Jordan, where he can win the award annually. You know what I mean? But then you say, and the reason why I'm going back and forth because he's putting up these phenomenal numbers, and he's the easy pick. But then if you take Shea off that team, is that team one of the top 3 teams in the West? I don't think so.
Who do you think
Now,
comes out of the West?
huh?
Who do you think comes out of the West?
Denver. I do. I think Denver has the best team. I mean, they do, and I know they lost people last year, but I still think they have the best team. I think quietly they got arguably, I don't know, they got the best player. And they also got some pretty good co-stars as well. I think, and I also think, that altitude thing means a lot. It's tough to go in there and win. It's tough to go in there and win. I mean, I think Denver will come out of the West. But then, but the thing is, we talk about it. That's how some people project. And again, I haven't decided yet. I got to look at the numbers and everything and look and see how they did. But a lot of people, last year, a lot of people went after Joel Embiid, and then they saw what Nikola Jokic did in the playoffs, and they're like, "Oh, we messed up, so we got to switch it." And then they're projecting on how Denver's going to do, as opposed to seeing where OKC came from and where they are now. So again, and I'm not. It may seem like I'm leaning towards Shea right now, but I'm not. I just got to sit down and look at things before I make my pick.
You mentioned the difficulty with going with the altitude. When you're there writing a story, is it a little harder for you to write the story because of the altitude?
Not to write the story, but
the things you want to say to him now, you can't say on the air. And
I only have one more question. How'd Pitt do in the NCAA tournament this year?
Shots fired.
I tell you what, they would have boat raced Michigan.
Actually, you're right. And the hard part about ending an interview like this is that I went to Pitt for law school.
But can I ask you a question?
I have to talk smack against my own school just to get.
Can I ask you a question? Honestly, who has a better basketball team and a brighter future, Michigan or Rutgers?
Go ahead, Jeff. Say it. Spit it out. Oh, come
on. If you're talking future as far as 20,
I'm talking about next year, immediate future.
Oh, next year, Rutgers. Long term, Michigan.
Do you think so? I think y'all done, man.
All right. You said that about
I think y'all going to go back to being a football and swimming school.
Pompey, follow at Pompey on Sixers in the Inquirer. Let's see what the Sixers can do tonight, and hopefully they'll give us something exciting so that Jeff will actually think it's an interesting, real basketball game that we could cheer for. Thanks for the time, man.
All right, thanks, y'all.